Hey, what's going on, guys? Kalamazi here, and today I want to talk to you guys about Shadow's Embrace for Affliction Warlocks. Now, 9.1 for the most part, I feel is starting to wind down. Hall of Fame should probably be closing, I would assume, in a few weeks here. I actually don't know how many guilds have killed Mythic Denathrius at this point, but I would assume within the next few weeks, once the virtual BlizzCon comes out, we're going to start hearing a bit about 9.1, the new raid, and then probably somewhere, I would assume towards the end of February, going into March, probably get into actual PTR for 9.1 raid testing and all of that being a thing. So I want to talk to you guys a bit today about Shadow's Embrace for Affliction Warlocks. Now, I'm going to be making a video on the big changes I want to see for Warlocks in general heading into 9.1, but Shadow's Embrace is just such a big issue right now, I think most people feel, that I think it deserves its own video. So I want to start off by talking about what Shadow's Embrace is for Warlocks, how it actually works, what it does, look at the talents, conduits, things that affect it, and then get into a few potential changes I feel which would make Shadow's Embrace a lot better. Any weak auras, profiles, add-ons you see here, you can grab for free off my Twitch. If you want to swing by, hang out, ask any questions, feel free to do so. So, with that being said, let's start off with what Shadow's Embrace is, how it's maintained, and then how it needs to be changed. So starting off with what Shadow's Embrace actually is. Shadow's Embrace was previously a talent that we had in the level 50, or sorry, I guess 45 row here, but it was replaced by Darkglare, I believe in late alpha heading into beta for Shadowlands. It is now a passive ability I believe you learn at level 56 or so. It says Drain Soul and Haunt. Spoilers ahead, if you're playing anything but Drain Soul, it says Shadowbolt and Haunt. We'll get to that in a minute. Drain Soul and Haunt apply Shadow's Embrace, increasing your damage dealt to the target by 3% for 12 seconds, stacking up to 3 times. So the first thing with Shadow's Embrace here, oh, and for what it's worth, if you're playing the Haunt talent, it also applies a stack of Shadow's Embrace, or essentially refreshes the 3 stack of Shadow's Embrace if you have it. Now, Haunt has an 18-second actual duration, but a 15-second cooldown. So there's like 3-ish seconds you'll have of Haunt being active on your target, but you'll have a bit of time to actually cast it again, travel time factored in, and refresh it before it falls. And keep in mind that Haunt also does have a 10% damage increase tied to it as well. And this is not just dot damage. The same with Shadow's Embrace. Shadow's Embrace is not just dot damage. It's not just the damage you deal with your spells. Shadow's Embrace is quite literally every single bit of damage you have. For example, I'll hit this dummy here. Let me clear meters out. We'll hit this with my actual Dark Moon Death Trinket here. We'll pop it. It hits for 25.85. In about a minute and a half here, you're going to see it hit for about 10% more when I stack Shadow's Embrace with Drain Soul. So we'll come back to that in a little bit. But the big thing with Drain Soul in Shadow's Embrace is that Drain Soul, number one, makes Shadow's Embrace so much easier to stack and maintain. So if I go here, this is Quartz, a cast add-on, my casting bar add-on here. You see Shadow's Embrace just stacking 1, 2, 3. It's incredibly easy. This weak aura, or add-on shows periodic ticks of your channel. So for each periodic tick here, 1, 2, 3 stacks of Shadow's Embrace. That's all you really have to do to stack this with Drain Soul. Drain Soul is also a channel that really doesn't have any travel time because it's a channeled ability. So number one with Shadow's Embrace is that it pigeonholes you into playing Drain Soul as your talent here pretty much over every other spell in this row. Inevitable Demise is an Azerite trait that we saw in BFA. It's strong, gains a lot of value in 2, 3, 4 target settings, and Nightfall was also changed in beta to now actually scale with having more corruptions active. Now it does, I believe, DR at a certain point, but it's still a thing. So one more time here, watch how fast it is to actually stack Shadow's Embrace with Drain Soul. Let's go max range here. 1 stack, 2 stacks, 3 stacks. It took about 2 seconds, give or take. If we swap to Inevitable Demise now, keep in mind Drain Soul replaces Shadowbolt. So we have Shadowbolt here as my main, I guess, filler spell here in a sense. The spell that's going to stack actual Shadow's Embrace. Now I'm going to pull up a stopwatch here. For what it's worth, you do typically cast Haunt in your opener, but sometimes you play Haunt, sometimes you don't. So I want to show you how long it takes to stack Shadow's Embrace to 3 stacks with Shadowbolt. Ready? Timer, Shadowbolt. Eight seconds. It's essentially double the actual duration of the Drain Soul stacking. The actual travel time on Shadowbolt is miserable. Also, watch this. I cast that at 3 on Shadow's Embrace. It took 2.5 seconds to hit the target to refresh the stack of Shadow's Embrace there. So it's not just the fact that Drain Soul stacks it so much quicker, it's also the fact that it's so much easier to refresh Shadow's Embrace. For example, let's let this tick down to, I don't know, the 2-second mark here. Being able to just pop Drain Soul, channel that damage back in, and get the refresh within a second or two is so incredibly impactful when it comes to like a prog setting. 3 seconds, 2 seconds, 1, Drain Soul, who cares? Back to 3, doesn't matter. Good luck refreshing that with a Shadowbolt. You have to cast your Shadowbolt at max range with about 3 seconds left, not, you know, 1 second. It's actually ridiculous. Now, Drain Soul, for the most part, is our best option in this row here. However, you have seen a handful of fights, I guess one being Sludge Fist in Castle Nathria, where Inevitable Demise has gained a good bit of value. Every time Sludge Fist charges a pillar, he takes 100% increased damage. So you stack a big drain here, like a big ID. Drain life, the insane healing that it brings you, and the damage it puts out is really solid. Like, it is arguably, not even really arguably, it pretty much is the best talent in this row for that fight. But the issue is that you're playing Shadowbolt. And have you tried to maintain Shadowbolt and Shadow's Embrace on a fight where you have Haunt, Agony, Corruption, Siphon Life, UA, Singularity, Soul Rot, Shadow's Embrace, 18 CDs to manage in a very short burst window? If you get like an effect on you, a mechanic, it is so incredibly hard. Oh, okay, refresh Shadow's Embrace. Cool, cast my Shadowbolt. Oh, too late, it fell. It's so incredibly hard to maintain Shadow's Embrace on a fight like that if you have mechanics on you, if you fall behind the rotation at all. And Affliction already has a very punishing, I don't say punishing, but a very hard rotation to actually maintain in game now. Your opener is like 24 spells long. If you, I guess, give or take. I mean, for pure single target, you pretty much open on Haunt, precasting an Agony 2, 3, 4, 5, stack Shadow's Embrace to 3, 6, 7, Singularity 8, Soul Rot 9, Dark Soul 10, Darkglare, Trinket 11, 12. You'd Haunt to refresh here. 13, 14, 15. There's a lot to do in its opener, and you can see all my dots are hitting Pandemic now. Oh, this is following too, great. Launch my Shadowbolt. Like, it's not a very challenging rotation for somebody who's played it for a while, but for players who aren't as acclimated to AF maintaining dots, playing without Drain Soul feels terrible for anybody. It feels really bad for players who don't know how to manage and juggle dots as well as they probably should, with Shadow's Embrace being a thing. So remember when we said Shadow's Embrace affects more than dot damage? My Trinket hit for 2,580. Watch me pop my Trinket now. 1 stack, 2 stack, 3 stack, Trinket. 2817. Shadow's Embrace affects more than just dot damage. Shadow's Embrace affects like on-use trinkets, it affects on-use trinket procs, it affects potions like Phantom Fire potions, it affects every kind of damage-based event that you deal to that target. So you have essentially a 9% stacking damage increase, well 9% from Shadow's Embrace at 3 stacks, and you also have 10% from Haunt here. So essentially Afflocks with damage-based trinkets, damage-based potions, whatever would have you deal, well, about 20% more damage to that target with those effects. Now, that's not factoring in conduits as well. Cold Embrace is one that really, it increases the effectiveness of Shadow's Embrace by 45%. So what this essentially means is that Shadow's Embrace, instead of dealing or giving you a 9% damage increase, it's going to give you, what, about a 16% damage increase or so on your target at 3 stacks. It makes Shadow's Embrace even more relevant to maintain. And in a 2-target setting, I have 15% haste here. Trying to maintain Agony, Corruption, Siphon Life, it's not that it's hard to maintain those dots on 2 or 3 targets. It's the fact that you don't have enough time. You don't have enough globals to maintain Shadow's Embrace, even playing Drain Soul in a 2-target setting. Let's take a look at how it looks though in a typical Drain Soul opener on 2 targets here. So let's say, for example, here you're in a 2-target setting, playing the full single target build, which you normally do in 2-target, similar to like a Huntsman Alt-War kind of fight, where you have your main target, let's say it's Skull, and then you have X being your off target, being one of the 3 dogs that he has active. Now, it's not just Huntsman Alt-War this tier. You also have Sun King Salvation, you have Council of Blood, you have Stone Legion Generals. Trying to juggle Shadow's Embrace on more than 1 target feels absolutely miserable. So let's look at a normal opener here with our Darkglare dot extension and just see how awkward it is trying to juggle Shadow's Embrace at this point. So we're gonna open up here. I'll even pop my actual Dark Soul early to get set up faster. It's fine. Now, let's just do it. Haunt, UA, pop this, sure. Agony, Agony, Corruption, Siphon, Corruption, Siphon, drain Shadow's Embrace here. I'm not even gonna go to the third one yet. We'll do this. Phantom Singularity, Soul Rot, pop everything, go there. I'll try and drain here. Probably should have drained beforehand, to be fair, but like, so we have Shadow's Embrace at 3 stacks on both. Bam, bam, right there. We're rapturing all our shards away, but look, dots are falling. All right, start refreshing. Here, 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 here. Try and catch Shadow's Embrace here. Okay, can't even catch it. Catch it here. Barely caught it. Siphon Life's falling here. UA's falling. Refresh UA. Let's go. Haunt's down here again too. Refresh Haunt. Haunt will refresh that one there. Back over here. Shadow's Embrace again. Corruption's falling. Lost Shadow's Embrace already. Agony's falling. Siphon Life's been down here in general. Go back to the Agony. Agony's falling. Shadow's Embrace is falling again. Where am I supposed to rapture here? Like, what am I supposed to do at this point? That was with a Dark Soul, with a Darkglare extension. At a certain point, you're just like, okay, well, I'm just going to forego my Shadow's Embrace on our off target here and just spam my raptures because I'm shard capped, which is what you should be doing in that situation, right? Now, I don't know. I would assume this is probably not the intended, I guess, way. I doubt this is the way Blizzard envisioned Shadow's Embrace working. Now, you could just say, sure, play Absolute Corruption instead, though. And if we played Absolute Corruption, it's much, much, much easier to maintain Shadow's Embrace in this kind of setting. But the thing is, Affliction was changed heading from BFA into Shadowlands, and for what it's worth, that rotation there might not have been 100% optimal. It's fine, but you get what I'm getting at there. Affliction was changed in BFA heading into Shadowlands. Our Shard Spender is no longer Unstable Affliction. Our Shard Spender is now Malefic Rapture. So there is really only so much you can do when it comes to this. You don't want to cap on shards. You want to rapture things away because that represents a lot of value in even a one target setting. And while AC might have been your go-to choice in 2+ target settings before, like council fights in a raid, having that third dot being Siphon Life active on a target gives you more rapture damage on this target, and it's just good damage in general. It will beat out AC and pure 2-target damage anyways. So running Siphon Life is much more beneficial in a 2-target setting where you can manage the dots relatively well. The problem, like I said, though, is that Shadow's Embrace is just an issue. You don't want to miss out on that 9% damage amp. That's a lot. And with Cold Embrace at rank 200, I think, I don't even have 213. Yeah, it's 200. You're looking at quite literally a 45% damage, or I guess effectiveness increase to Shadow's Embrace. This does not mean it deals 45% more damage when you have it stacked. This means that the 9% essentially goes to like 16% or whatever. Probably 16.7, something like that. Florida math. But you don't want to miss out on that damage amp. But what can you do? This is not an issue where it's too hard to maintain 3 dots on 2 targets. Hey, let's be real here. If Blizzard wants to buff Wrath and Agony through the roof and make it our best talent everywhere, I'm down for it. That's fine. But being real, this is not an issue where it's a player skill thing. This is quite literally, the spec is designed in a way where you can't realistically maintain the main debuff, being Shadow's Embrace, that is a part of the baseline core toolkit in a 2-target setting. If this was a talent, for example, let's say Darkglare wasn't a thing, and let's say Darkglare was baseline, and this was a talent, you just swap off and play something else. You probably play Haunt in general, and that'd be fine. But this is a core baseline ability of the spec, and it is an actual nightmare to juggle in anything besides one target. Being real, even 1-target settings, Shadow's Embrace is sort of a pain, because at times it's just a bit of a pain. But you're playing Drain Soul in those settings anyways, for the most part, and well, mainly because it's a nightmare trying to maintain SE with Shadowbolt, and it just normally happens, refreshing Haunt and things like that. But when you get into a 2-target setting, don't even bother with 3-target with Siphon Life. Even 3-target with AC becomes a bit of an issue, because you have to channel for like a third of half a second on each target. And when you have a dot falling here, and a dot falling here, and a UA falling here, it's just an actual nightmare. This has been an issue from alpha into beta, and I feel like we didn't give enough feedback on it, and this is unfortunately the version of Shadow's Embrace that we got. So, with all that being said, and demonstrating as to why it's a nightmare, I want to talk about a few suggestions, potential solutions that I've talked to THD, Shele, and a handful of other Warlocks about that I hope could potentially be made heading into 9.1. So, one of the most suggested things outside of a duration increase when it comes to Shadow's Embrace is quite literally just removing Shadow's Embrace from the game and putting Contagion back into Unstable Affliction. Now, if you're not familiar with what Contagion is, previously until Shadowlands, Well, I guess in BFA, and I guess expansion pass. I don't know when it started. Regardless, Unstable Affliction increased the damage of the target it was on that you do by 10%. It was your damage, your trinkets, your potions, whatever. It was essentially Shadow's Embrace just baked into Unstable Affliction. Now, Unstable Affliction obviously went under a few changes. It no longer costs a shard. It's not stackable though. But the big thing with UA in Shadowlands, you can't have it active on more than one target in PvE. Now, you can have it active on multiples in PvP, but seeing as how F is sort of a dot rot based kind of spec, I don't think it would be terribly OP in arenas in PvP with rampant afflictions being a thing. I do think probably outside of a duration extension, the simplest way to fix this is just to put it back in the Unstable Affliction. We're already limited to one stack when it comes to our UA usage, unless we're in a PvP setting once again, so you're not really gaining a whole lot of value if they thought that was an OP thing. Let's say having 4 agonies or 4 UAs rolling on 4 mobs, Mythic Plus, you still have to pick and choose what targets you want to have your UA on. And that's the one that's going to get the actual raw damage increase. I suppose that opens up a question though, what are you going to replace that baseline ability with, being, you know, Shadow's Embrace? Are you just going to remove it from the game? Or are you going to move it back to being another talent instead of Darkglare, which is probably not going to be a thing? That's something that they would have to figure out on their own heading into 9.1. But I do think that just bringing back Contagion is one of these simpler, easier, probably more effective ways to actually address the issue of Shadow's Embrace. With the current state of AF, like I said, you wouldn't really even have a damage amp on 2 targets because you're choosing which one you have your UA on. So it wouldn't even be a thing. It wouldn't even be an issue on Hunts Baltimore. It wouldn't be a thing on Council of Blood. Well, I guess isn't in the first place. It wouldn't be a thing on Stone Legion Generals. It wouldn't be a thing in 2+ target settings. And in 1 target, all you have is your UA active, which fits the current profile of AF so well because that's what AF does. It is a rot-based spec that harvests resources from surrounding ads and pumps it into a main target. Now, THD suggested that, but he also had a really interesting suggestion. He said that what he would like to see is having Drain Soul stack Shadow's Embrace or Shadowbolt, whatever, what have you, but actually have Shadow's Embrace refreshed by Rapture. Once Shadow's Embrace hits 3 stacks, you can't, or I guess X stacks, whatever it is, if you push it to 2 stacks, for example. Let's say I push this to 2 stacks of Shadow's Embrace, and I Raptured here. It's not going to push it to 3, but it's going to refresh the duration to, let's say, 12 seconds, 15, whatever. That makes a really interesting scenario because, okay, that means you can refresh multiple Shadow's Embraces a lot easier, but you're probably rapturing outside of your PS or Soul Rot window. So it adds a bit of like in-depth, I guess choices to your gameplay, but I actually like the way that feels. It works well with your spender. It would mean that you have to stack Shadow's Embrace on this target and let's say this target in your opener, but for the most part, once you stack them to 3, you have a 12-second window to rapture, to cast your Rapture and refresh them both. You're not having to go, all right, here okay, here we go, let's get all our dots rolling here. Let's just put up our dots. 3 dots each, bam, you get a Singularity, you get a UA, you get a Soul Rot, you get a Darkglare, you get a Haunt. You're not having to go like, all right, Shadow's Embrace 3. You'd stack this beforehand for what it's worth, but you're not having to go Shadow's Embrace 3. All right, back here. Oh, this is falling. Refresh here. All you do is to stack them both 3 and just Rapture. Maybe save a shard or 2, but they're refreshing here. Refresh. And okay, cool. I got to refresh dots. Bam. Refresh. Bam. Cool. Rapture again. Refresh, Embrace. Go from there. It makes gameplay so much simpler, so much easier, and it fits the toolkit of Affliction so well right now. You're actually rewarded in a sense if packs are going to live for a long time, Mythic Plus, to actually stack Shadow's Embrace on 1 target, 2 targets, 3 targets, and then Rapture, because Rapture will maintain that damage increase. But at this point in time, you're not trying to Shadow's Embrace 4 or 5 mobs and plus. You're not even doing it on 2. You're only doing it on your main target once you set up on them. It's not worth the time. You don't have that time, but it might add a bit more value to it if that was a thing. So actually having Malefic Rapture refresh the duration of Shadow's Embrace, but not stack it, could be a very good thing. Outside of a baseline duration increase, I really like the way that sounds a lot. And it really wouldn't take a huge retooling. You can keep Shadow's Embrace baseline. You don't have to move Darkglare. You don't have to change UA. All it is, Malefic Rapture refreshes Shadow's Embrace and causes damage on targets. That's all you got to do. I actually really like the way that sounds. THD, my man. So one of the biggest suggestions that I've gotten a lot is why not just increase the actual duration of Shadow's Embrace to like 20 seconds or a longer duration. Now that is probably the simplest fix they could do, and in the end I would take that. That's fine. It would make juggling it in 2 targets, 3 targets, whatever, much easier than it actually is. The issue with that is I feel like it would sort of become maybe potentially a bit elementary, which wouldn't be that bad. It would put it in a much better state than it is now. But when I asked Shelley what his ideas were about Shadow's Embrace and everything, he actually said that he wants a duration increase, but it's only refreshable by Haunt alone. And you can only put it on 1 target. Either that or remove it. Remove it or make it applicable to 1 target and increase the duration. So it's refreshable by Haunt alone. So essentially you would stack it with either Drain Soul or Shadow's Embrace or whatever. And then once you hit 3 stacks, your Haunt would be the one to maintain it. Now, I feel it has to be maintainable with either Shadowbolt or Drain Soul or Haunt. But I mean, if you increase the baseline duration of this, it would essentially make it refreshable in a sense by Haunt alone, because once again, Haunt's cooldown is 15 seconds. So let's say you made Shadow's Embrace 18 seconds, which I actually think is a pretty good idea at this point. Maybe like probably 18-ish, give or take a little bit, or reduce Haunt's cooldown. That's something in itself. That would make it essentially you can stack this to 3 stacks with Drain Soul or Shadowbolt, and then just maintain it with Haunt permanently on 1 target. The thing is, if for whatever reason you're not playing Haunt single target, for whatever reason, it would mean that you couldn't refresh your Shadow's Embrace. So it had to be refreshable by either Drain Soul or Shadowbolt like it is now, or Haunt. So TLDR, actually increasing the duration of this is probably the simplest way they can go about fixing Shadow's Embrace. It would give you more value, more time to just do things in single target, and 2 target, and 3 target, and really make the maintenance buff itself not feel anywhere near as bad as it actually does at this point. On fights like Lady and Nova Darkbane, trying to maintain Shadow's Embrace on 2 targets with precasting Seed of Corruption, spreading Agony, spreading Siphons, trying to Rapture in a PS and Soul Rot window feels absolutely miserable. Unlike Sludge Fist, if you fall behind your setup by a second, good luck to all your damage on the pillar. Having a bit more leeway with Shadow's Embrace's duration being extended to like probably 16. I mean, I could see 18 seconds. 18 is probably where you want to be, would be a godsend, and probably one of the best changes they could make Shadow's Embrace just in general. Another change that I've heard suggested a good bit on stream is that have Shadow's Embrace's duration increased by 2 seconds per dot you have active on the target whenever you stack it or refresh it. So let's say I go into a Drain Soul here, right? The baseline duration of Shadow's Embrace is 12 seconds. So let's say, all right, we're drained to 3, it's 12. It's refreshing here because we're channeling Drain. Let's say if I went Agony Drain though, it would go to 14 seconds. Let's say if I had an Agony and a Siphon active, it would drain to 16 seconds. If I had Agony, Corruption, and Siphon Life, 18 seconds. And if I had a UA on my main target, I have 20 seconds. Now, there's a bit of give and take there. You can make a case for 2 seconds, 1 second, 1.5. I feel like 1 second's probably not enough. But you can make a case for like even a 1 second duration increase per dot affected on the target. That would indeed go a long way. Even at 1 second, you're going to look at 16 seconds, maybe 17, maybe 18 if you have your Soul Rod up. That gives you your entire Darkglare window to Rapture, to Drain, to do whatever what you need to do to just not have to worry about refreshing your Shadow's Embrace. And once you actually hit that 18-second mark, let's say you have all your dots up, Agony, Corruption, Siphon, UA, and you're in a PS Soul Rot window for whatever reason. Once you get past probably that 16-second mark, your Haunt's going to refresh that actual UA pretty easily. So let's say each dot is 1.5 seconds, right? So we have, let's say we have 4 dots active here. Each dot increases the duration of Shadow's Embrace by 1.5 seconds. So that means we're looking at 4.5 seconds being extended, right? No, actually 6, because you have 4 dots. So you're looking at a 6-second extension, meaning baseline with 4 dots active, Agony, Siphon, Corruption, and UA, your Shadow's Embrace would be 18 seconds. That in itself sort of encapsulates what Shelley was talking about, increasing the actual duration of SE and having Haunt be the ability that refreshes it over and over. Now you're going to do it with Shadow's Embrace with Drain Soul regardless, but that actually goes once again a long way when it comes to single target. Now, if you're in a 2 target scenario, if you can juggle, you know, like Agony, Corruption, Siphon, UA singularity on 2 targets, I think 18 seconds there, you know, having that 1.5 second increase, I guess it would be 16.5 and 18 on 2 targets, is fine as well, because you're rewarded for being able to properly juggle those dots, which is not hard to do when you're familiar with Affliction and aren't playing with 2% haste. That's not the challenge. The challenge is quite literally just not having enough time, being restricted by what the game has been designed around, to not maintain Shadow's Embrace. So that rewards you for maintaining it in 2 targets. It rewards you for maintaining it in 3, technically, if you're playing AC or whatever you're doing. It also rewards you even more so in single target, when you can just pump 1 target and not have to worry about it basically just being refreshed by Haunt. I actually like that idea a lot. The Rapture idea is great, and Shelley's idea is great, and also works very well with that being a thing. I think that's a very, very good place to start with Shadow's Embrace. I did want to address the few, I guess, suggestions that we got about Darkglare and Shadow's Embrace and Unstable Affliction with Shadow's Embrace. So a lot of these suggestions on stream that I asked for before my break a week or so was that I heard, why not just tie Shadow's Embrace to Unstable Affliction? Have UA apply Shadow's Embrace, have it refresh Shadow's Embrace. But the issue with that, right off the bat, is that the actual duration here, I mean, you're looking at max 24 seconds on I guess 28 if you're, you know, pandemic it, but the duration of Unstable Affliction is a lot longer than what Shadow's Embrace is. Now, once you hit pandemic range on your UA, if you refresh like that, you're probably going to be able to refresh Shadow's Embrace about when it falls, give or take, because 18 seconds, 12-second duration on SE, but with pandemic being factored in things, I just don't really think it's worth it. And it doesn't really do much either when it comes to actually helping you in 2 targets and 3 targets. Now, let's be real. Shadow's Embrace is a pain to maintain in really any setting, right? Whether it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 10, 20. But not being able to spread your UA to 2 targets to 3 targets would really hinder how much that change, being UA applying Shadow's Embrace, affects things. I don't think it would be a very good place to go with that ability. Another suggestion has been, have your Darkglare apply Shadow's Embrace whenever he eye beams things. Now, that could be a thing. Let's be real here. Darkglare for Affliction is so incredibly weak. It is, imagine your 3-minute major cooldown. For non-warlocks out there, if anybody's watching, or people who don't play AF, imagine your major 3-minute cooldown in Mythic Plus being 2.5% of your damage. That's about the percent breakdown that I-Beam deals over the course of a run. Now, Darkglare does indeed also extend your dots on multiple targets, so it gives you more time to rapture. It does do more damage based off how many targets you have dots on. So there's more to it than just meets the eye, pun half intended. The eye, yeah, it's terrible. But I don't think having it apply Shadow's Embrace would be like, I just don't think it's really worth it. You're going to have that cooldown once every 3 minutes, once every 2 if you're playing Darkcaller. But if you're playing Darkcaller, you're probably in like an AoE setting, and Shadow's Embrace is probably not going to be a huge priority of yours, because the Eye Beam also doesn't AoE. All it does is hit 1 target. So while that could be a neat little thing, I don't think it would really change a whole lot when it comes to anything but single target AF. And honestly, single target Shadow's Embrace maintenance is the easiest of, well, anything really at this point. So regardless of whatever stance Blizzard takes on Shadow's Embrace, hopefully having some way to fix it heading into 9.1, hopefully it may be a suggestion from this video. Regardless of that though, even if they leave Shadow's Embrace the way that it is, there's one thing that really needs to be changed when it comes to Affliction Warlocks. Like the point of this video, Shadow's Embrace, we're basically pigeonholed into playing Drain Soul. Have you seen, I guess if you, playing anything but Drain Soul with Shadow's Embrace feels so incredibly bad. Watch how slow this Shadowbolt cast is here. Look at how slow this thing moves. I can go to my car, go to McDonald's, get a hamburger, come back, and this thing still won't hit the target. It's so incredibly slow, and it only applies 1 stack of Shadow's Embrace. Like, look, I'll cast it again. It ticked down to almost 7 seconds before it hit the target again. So the first thing needs to be addressed in 9.1, regardless of whether they increase Shadow's Embrace duration or not, is the actual travel time of Shadowbolt. Now, there was an issue similar to this with Demonology and Axe Toss before it was made to an actual interrupt. The Axe Toss would like fly in an arc, do a circle of 10 different backflips, and eventually hit the target like 8 seconds later. All they did was make it a straight line. That's all they did. Shadow's Embrace just needs, or sorry, Shadowbolt just needs to travel a lot faster. Make it like an Ice Lance. Make it like, you know, I guess an Incinerate waves and weaves. Just make it faster. It's much more important now than it ever has been, because it's not just your filler, it's your filler that maintains your main debuff on your target. By the way, you're never going to maintain Shadow's Embrace on 2 targets playing Shadowbolt. which is really unfortunate because this is arguably our best 2-target ability in this row. It quite literally, they don't work together. Like they're like, it's anti-synergy there. You're never going to maintain Shadow's Embrace on 2 targets playing ID, which is probably one of your best abilities in 2 targets because the double agony stack duration or increase, because Shadowbolt's cast time is so incredibly slow. Like we'll try and stack this to 3. Look at how long this takes me to stack 2 targets to 3. It's been 12 seconds. And you have Agony, Corruption, Siphon Life, UA, Singularity, Soul Rot. I can barely even maintain. Okay, like you're never going to be able to do that. So it just puts you in a spot where you can't play ID in the first place. Now a travel time like reduction would greatly increase or help make that a bit more viable, I guess you can say, but it still needs help outside of that. The fact that Haunt applies 1 stack of Shadow's Embrace is very strong. I think that Shadowbolt probably needs to apply 2 stacks of Shadow's Embrace. I actually do. Factoring in the travel time and things, it still takes you less time to apply 2 stacks of Shadow's Embrace with Drain Soul, even if you make Shadowbolt apply 2. But it's a step in the right direction. And also having Shadowbolt apply 2 stacks of Shadow's Embrace whenever it hits the target means that you can essentially just open up in your normal opener, all right, precast your Haunt, precast your UA, and by the time you get around to going into your Shadow's Embrace stacking, you still have it up. All you can do is just bolt from 1 to 3 stacks, refresh, and go. It makes things so much easier, so much simpler. So regardless of whether they actually address the Shadow's Embrace issue, that definitely needs to be looked at heading into 9.1, because this is probably the biggest issue that Afflocks have at this point in time. Haste and things will help this to a certain extent, but the fact of the matter is, this is not really a stat thing. This is not really oh, this is the first patch of the expansion. This is a core design philosophy issue that needs to be addressed. I wish we had talked about it more in alpha and beta when we had the Warlock feedback document and things going. We talked about it really later. Jeez, much later, towards the end of the expansion, or I guess beta, but it was probably just too late at that point. Now, there would be a couple things that need to be addressed. Number one, if they made a Contagion come back and have your 10% damage amp attached to it, like UA, there would need to be some way to change. They would have to change Cold Embrace, because Shadow's Embrace wouldn't be here anymore. They're not going to have Contagion on UA, Haunt, and Shadow's Embrace being a thing. So that would require them to rework Cold Embrace, which is the main reason why I don't think you're going to see that come back. Also, the fact that they changed UA from being multi-target to 1 target, I don't think you're going to see Contagion come back. I just don't. It would require a rework of Cold Embrace and probably some kind of rework to focus Malignancy, because they probably don't want essentially your UA doing a lot more damage to your main target and giving you a big damage amp there. But those issues could technically be addressed. In the end, we have a little bit of time until 9.1. I hope that this video has given a handful of suggestions, good ideas, ways to just change Shadow's Embrace, because Afflock at this point, I think, feels really good. I like the way Afflock plays in Shadowlands. I am a huge fan of the change from UA being our shards binder to Rapture. It gives us just such a better profile in Mythic Plus, AoE, burst damage. Look at Sludge Fist. Warlocks destroy Sludge Fist when you get your PI in the 4th pillar, because you can deal all of your damage in that 10, 12-ish second window, dumping 5, 6 Raptures, dumping a Drain Life. Oh wait, we're not playing Drain Life because of Shadow's Embrace, but dumping all your damage in that window. It's so incredibly strong, and just honestly, well, just better than BFA was. If Shadow's Embrace is addressed, I think Affliction is going to be in a much better spot. There are a couple more things that I want addressed as well, but those are for a different video. I like Shadow's idea of the actual duration extension and refreshing with Haunt. I also really like THD's idea of refreshing with Rapture. I think having those ideas combined in things, maybe adding a second on or second half on to Shadow's Embrace, depending how many dots you have active, could sort of incorporate Shadow's idea into just the change that Shadow's Embrace needs. But either way, we need some kind of change, because it just feels weird having a core ability, a 10% damage amp, a part of your toolkit, and you can't really maintain it on more than 1 target. Thanks for watching, guys. I hope this video gave you all a better understanding of just how bad Shadow's Embrace feels at this point in Shadowlands, and hopefully we see some changes heading into 9.1. Now, I did harp a lot on 2-target, 3-target settings in this video with Shadow's Embrace, but I do want to drive the point home that it also feels sort of bad in single target. It's just not that much of an issue because typically you're using your Haunt to refresh or as draining as your filler in the first place. But even in single target, once again, this Shadowbolt thing needs to be addressed. We're really just locked into playing Drain Soul in the first row, and it feels bad because ID is an awesome talent. Nightfall was changed in beta to make it scale with more targets, but all you can really play is Drain Soul. It's still a good talent in the first place, but you get what I'm saying. Let me know what you guys think of this video, the suggestions, everything in the comment section below. I'm very, very interested to see how you guys feel about these, I guess, ideas that we've all had. If you have any questions, feel free to leave them down there as well. I'll be sure to get back to you. Once again, any Week Wars, profiles, add-ons you can get for free on my Twitch stream. If you want to swing by, hang out, ask any questions, feel free to do so at any time. If you guys want to see more WoW content, help support the channel, be sure to smash the subscribe button below and hit the like button while you're down there as well. Thanks again, dudes. I will catch you all again soon on stream. Peace.